Well, here's another fine kettle of fish we've gotten ourselves into.
Welcome back, shop rats. It's good to be with you again. It's been a couple weeks since I've been out here because, quite frankly, I was burned out and then I was gone because I had this going on and some other stuff. So it's been all good, but I want to do a little bit of tutorial how-to today on some sheet metal repair. I'm not going to give it all away yet. If you want to know what this is all about, just stick around. Let's watch the show intro and I'll see you in about 30 seconds. Remember that everything we do here applies to any project that you might be working on. I'm Mike, and this is My Car Shop.
Working out of a 100-year-old refurbished barn, bringing 35 years of experience to projects considered beyond repair. Vision, creativity, and problem solving are essential tools in this place. Watch as we transform junk into polished metal miracles. This is My Car's Shop.
I can't emphasize that enough that yes, we work on a lot of Mopars here, but we have an Oakland, i.e. Pontiac, and we have a Ford, and we've got a bunch of Mini Coopers, and we got a Cadillac project here that I haven't even put on the channel yet. We got a lot of stuff. So what we do, even though I'm mostly a Mopar guy, what we do here really applies to anything. And channel viewer Clayton posted an interesting thing over on the ebodies.org Facebook page where he's been hanging new sheet metal, and he ran into some issues and was looking for some help. So we started messaging back and forth, and I said I'd help him out and do a tutorial, so here we are. So what we've got, he had hung a piece of a quarter panel and so forth, and the gaps didn't come out right for the sheet metal. And so I kind of imitated what I saw in the pictures. I hope I got this right, buddy. Where I got my piece of quarter panel, okay, this is just a simulation, obviously, because I'm not going to go cutting up stuff on one of the project cars to demonstrate this. But we got a couple pieces of metal here, and this is the car. Okay, does this look like a car to you? And this is the quarter panel piece, and when you fit it in there, we cut it wrong, and we've got a gap. It fits fairly good up here. We got like a 1/16 of an inch, and we go from maybe an 1/8 of an inch to 3/16, and then we go down to a 1/4 of an inch. And the question is, how in the world do we repair this? Well, I'm going to show you. So come on over here. Get up off your buns, get off the couch, put down the cold snacks, and come over here and let's take a look at this. Like I said, I'm doing my best to duplicate what I saw in the pictures. And so we're going to go ahead and we're going to do this repair. Now, I just used a piece of scrap. This happens to be 18 gauge, and believe me, that's a lot thicker than the material on these cars. As far as body panels go, most of them are 20. But it's what I had, and I didn't want to cut up a piece off of my big sheet of 20 gauge just for this. I've got a truckload of metal coming, and if I had it here, we would have used 20 gauge. But I'm running low, and I'm trying to conserve my materials. Anyway, get to the point. So you can kind of see that we're fitting together there. Okay, and I'm going to purposely open that top up just a little bit more. So we go from like being a fairly good butt weld fit here to kind of a decent one there to getting a little bit wide, and then we go down here and we got a big 1/4 inch gap that we've got to take care of. So I want to show you guys how to do this. There's a couple different ways I'll go through with you, and then we're going to do the repair the way I actually would do it. I'm not going to use a TIG welder on this. I'm going to use a MIG welder and try to keep this simple. This material is a little bit warped. I'm not going to bother straightening that out for the demonstration, but you can see things aren't, well, they're not exactly laying like they should. Let's see if we can... Okay, that's a little better. So that's kind of the direction we're going to go right there, and that's laying a little better. So I'm going to go grab some tools here and show you what I'm thinking. So the first thing I recommend in a situation like this and on the car, I would still probably do this, is get some maggots. And just use some maggots to hold everything together. That helps keep your gaps good and so forth. Probably only need 2 on this. So now I've kind of made that, 1. If I was starting from scratch with a repair panel like this, I probably wouldn't try cutting and fitting. If I was doing a patch, let me take you over to the car and I'll show you. Okay, so if I was going to do a patch on this quarter panel, let's say like here, I probably would do a cut and butt technique, at least across the top. And if you've seen videos on the channel here. If you haven't, there are definitely videos here, and I'll try to remember to post some links to that. But I've got to do some work down here. This couldn't really do a cut and butt down here because this has a quarter panel extension behind it. And when you're doing a cut and butt, you need to be able to get behind it. Yes, when I did this, one of these floor patches in here, I did a cut and butt. It might have been when I did that patch. If you scroll back a few episodes, go back about a month on the channel, so about 12 or 15 episodes, you'll see me working on some of this in here. As of today, I don't think this episode has aired yet. So it would be about a month ago from when you're seeing this. That I did a little cut and butt technique there, and so that might be helpful to you. I feel like I did another one in here somewhere also, but that's good enough. So there's several places where I do it. But for those that haven't seen that, I'll just quickly explain what that is. So what you do is you take your panel, and in this case, I would cut this panel off carefully, but I would leave myself, I'd probably do a flush weld here, a butt weld here, or I might do an overlap. That's most of the time what I do on stuff like this is overlap. But if I was going to do a cut and butt or an overlap, so an overlap is like I did the quarter panel on the other side. You can go find that episode where you go along and you put a flange in there, and then you cut your panel a ½ an inch longer, and it settles down into that flange, and you can weld it. The cut and butt technique, I would leave myself about 1 or 2 inches of this material here, and then cut everything off so that I'm doing all of the plug welding and so forth to attach it to the inner wheel well, etc., etc. And then what you do is you lay your new panel on there, and you go through and you start tack welding it in. Okay, now you remember you've got an overlap of about 2 inches, so I would tack it about every 2-3 inches along here, like so. And then what you do is you go and you take a cutoff wheel and you just cut those welds. And then you're cutting through the weld, and you're cutting through the metal on the back, and you push it in until it's flush, and then you go ahead and tack weld it again, and you go along. And then when that's done along there, you peel off that inch strip of metal, and this metal is perfectly butt welded. Okay, but I didn't always do that. I've only started doing that in recent years, like the past 4 or 5 years maybe. And if I cut this panel and I cut it wrong, and my gaps were all wrong here, and I ended up with a nice big, 1/4 inch gap or a ½ inch gap down here, this is what I'm talking about. So that's what we're demonstrating over there on the bench, is how to correct when you've misjudged and cut a panel too short or don't have things exactly right. Okay, so we're back over here and we're getting our panel fitted. Now the first thing I'm probably going to do here is well, what I should do is grind this up a little bit and clean things up a little bit. So let's do that real quick so that we got good surfaces for welding. So I'm going to take this back out, and we'll get our little grindage. And we'll go after that, get that cleaned up, then we'll get this cleaned up, and then we'll start fitting things again. Of course, not having been out here for a few weeks, the compressor was completely out of air, so that's pumping up, and I thought I'd say a couple other things. When you're making repairs like this, especially on these thin quarter panels and things that you're buying aftermarket, if you're buying, like I use almost exclusively Sherman parts because they're cheap, I don't mind putting the work in. Heat is your enemy. I can't emphasize that enough, how quickly you can warp stuff if you're not careful. And so we're really going to try to demonstrate that, especially in this small area. You could take your welder and fill all that in, but you're going to warp the heck out of it, and then you're going to have to do a lot of hammer and dolly work or a bunch of Bondo work. Nothing wrong with Bondo if it's done right, but we want to try to minimize it, obviously, so that you don't have mud in there that's 1 inch thick. So we'll just, as soon as that pumps up, we'll get after it, we'll get this put in there. But I wanted to say clean metal is everything. Make sure your metal is clean. Also on the back side, make sure that you paint it with something so it doesn't rust. I prefer to use like a header paint, something high heat so it doesn't burn away. Some guys like using weld-through primer. I don't. I'm a paint and body guy, and one of the things I've learned over the years is unless it's one of these new primers that's urethane-based or something like that, it will absorb moisture and cause rust. So I prefer to not use weld-through. I personally prefer to bare metal whenever possible. On the back sides, I try to use the highest heat paint I can, header paint 2000 degree or whatever, so that where it welds, the burn is minimal. Somewhere way back when I was doing the hand building those frame rails on the back of this car, if you haven't seen those episodes, go check them out. I make unibody frame rails out of sheet metal using just a sheet metal brake and a bead roller and tipping some edges and things like that. But anyway, I use that and I demonstrate how minimal that burns off when you're using that 2000 degree paint. So just a tip from me. I'll be very clear to say, just because it's the way I do it doesn't mean it's the right way. It's just the way I do things, and what I have learned over 40 years of doing this stuff, what works for me, what doesn't. A lot of people have heartburn over the way I do things. I don't give a crap. You know what? I've been doing this a long time. You see the cars that I've got in process here, the 47 Ford, the 69 Charger, the 68 GTS. Those are all cars that I've built or been involved with. My son did the Charger. Stuff turns out beautiful when we're done, and I'm only building driver quality stuff. So we're not building concourse 6-7 figure show cars here. I've done them. We definitely do things differently in that world. That's not what I do here. I mean, look where I'm working. I'm working in a 100-year-old barn. This is just as home garage as you can get. Because I know we have people of all skill levels here, I did want to mention when I'm grinding, first of all, I should be wearing gloves, but I don't like gloves, so I wear them as little as possible. But it'd be real easy to screw up here. So always note the rotation of your grinder, okay? And always go off the edge of your metal. So I'm spinning like this and off like that. What happens if I do this? Is this is spinning, this could catch an edge, and then this thing could come at me like a knife. Obviously I wouldn't be doing it that way, or come into me like this. And these discs can catch an edge. So always grind off the edge of your metal. I can't emphasize that enough. I do it by habit without even thinking, but it's something to be very careful of. Do not ever grind onto the edge. I don't even like doing it if I have it clamped down, because it's just, you can tear your discs up. Just a habit. Grind off edge, grind off edge, grind off edge. So no matter what direction you're going, if I'm on this edge, I'm tipping it this way. If I'm on this edge, I'm tipping it this way. You can see on the back of my backing plate here, it's got a tear in it right there. It's got a chunk missing out of it, and probably in working under the car when I was moving around, I probably caught the back side of it on something, and I vaguely remember tearing a disc and you know, almost breaking this backing disc because of that. So always grind off edge. Going down here, grinding off edge, grinding off edge, grinding off edge. Okay, now when I get down here, obviously, and I start coming down this way, I don't want to do this because I'm grinding on edge, so I'll flip it and go this way, on down, grinding off edge again, okay? All right, let's get this put back in here. That's upside down. Don't put your quarter panel on upside down, the car will look funny. It'll look like a Yugo or a Peugeot. And if that's what you're building, go ahead. Okay, 2 maggots, that'll work. I'm going to tighten that up just a Nova Scotia. I'll have a pounding device here, so we'll do the right thing and use our hand. Okay, tighten that up to pretty much a good butt weld there. Again, intentionally leaving this wide to show you how to do this fill. So let's get this tacked in place real quick, and then we'll take you step by step through how to fix all of this and so forth. So I'm going to go ahead and put a couple little tacks, maybe 2 here. We'll put 1 over here, and maybe 1 in here just to start to get things put together. I'm not really too worried about where I put them, as far as, because I'm not putting a lot of heat into it, so I'm not worried about the metal expanding and shrinking out, because it's just going to be literally bzz, bzz, just to hold things together. One thing I shoot for is to share it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So one of the mistakes I made here, and you probably saw that I was struggling. I didn't cut that out of the video. I have a hard time seeing. I'm getting old. My eyes don't work very well anymore, and I struggle particularly with light. And I couldn't see real well. And what happened was my welder hit this piece of metal before it hit this one, and this one really wasn't grounded. So it caught a little here, hit over there, and then stuck. So I want to talk for just a second about ground, because I can't emphasize how important that is. If you saw the episode where we built the mounts for the rotisserie here, I was having all kind of problems. And of course, because people don't watch a whole episode, they watch 3 minutes of it, and then they just start flaming you in the comments for being a crappy welder, and you need to take welding classes, and blah, 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 blah. And they're just making complete fools of themselves because they have no idea what they're talking about. The issue I had in that episode was this welder of mine's it's 30 years old. And this ground clamp, the wire inside burned off or was burning off, and you see the big hole. Over time, I'd been struggling for a while with welding, and on sheet metal it's not as noticeable, but when I got to the heavy stuff is when it showed up. And my buddy Creeb was here, and he saw this glowing red. He said, "Whoa, dude, you got a ground problem." And we fixed it. We put a new ground lead on the wire welder, and the welding problems virtually went away, other than the fact that I hadn't welded heavy material for quite a while. So this was the same thing here. I have a good ground here, although if you're going to be doing sheet metal work, don't get one of these clamps. It's for big stuff, and it doesn't work well for this. Now, if I had a welding bench like I have over there covered with crap, with a metal top, it would be a little different scenario. But I'm going to be either modifying this or getting a different one. But anyway, so I was having the same problem here, and you can see the quality of that weld is terrible because I didn't get a real good ground and I didn't get a real good connection. So I got that straightened out. Of course, once I had this welded here, then I had good contact between the two, spotted it there. And I had to do a little filling there because, we have a gap there, right? So I'm going to take you through how I did that here in just a second. Hold on a minute. I've got everything going every which way. So what I did to get this fill was I started here and just put a bead in and kind of let it blob over that way. Okay, my wire speed is up pretty good. Now remember, this is grounded now because I had the ground hooked up over here, and these are welded together. So I started here, put a blob, then I came over here and put a blob, and then I let that cool until I could no longer see it glowing red in my helmet. And then I went ahead and just connected those together. So you can see blob, blob, and then connection. Okay, that's how I did that. And you can do that going along here, and so we'll try to demonstrate that. I wished I had somebody here that could run the camera for me and put this through a helmet to show you. I'll set the camera up the best I can, and we'll see what we can do. I think if I go slow enough, so that the auto darkening in the camera has a chance to adjust, you'll kind of see what I'm doing. So let's get this ground hooked back up here again. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of this one. It doesn't squeeze hard enough, but it's what I got right now. So it also helps if you get your other crap out of the way. Okay, that should work. There we go. Make sure that's down tight. I could clamp this down. Maybe I will. Pull this to the end of my bencher. Okay, there we go. Good. I don't really need my magnets anymore. I'm feeling that. It's feeling good. So let's go ahead and get that filled in. These are not welding gloves, but I got to get a new set. My leather gloves got a big hole in them for doing this light work. So I'm going to come back here like about that far. So it's first spot. See how I filled that? Now I'm going to let that cool, and I'll go down here and do another one about 1 inch. If I want to be real careful, I would take an air gun and blow that down. Rule of thumb is you should be able to touch, get my glove off here, you should be able to touch in the air. Okay, that is pretty hot. This piece is really hot. So let me get the air gun and cool that down, or we're going to get warpage over here. So it's pretty much lather, rinse, and repeat. And I'm going to go probably about the center between these two here. You can't be in a hurry. In fact, I can see that starting to lift a little bit. It's not filling real well, so I'm going to go ahead and cool that down again before I go further. Otherwise, you're going to end up with warpage. There we go. Now we're filling in. You can see that's lifting. As soon as it starts to lift, quit. Is this piece warping or is it? Nope, it's not. Well, kind of did a little bit, didn't it? Not sure why. Okay, this is a scenario here that would only happen on the bench. It wouldn't happen on the car. When I welded this, it burned through and created a blob on the backside a little bit, and that caused this to pull up. So it really didn't warp it. It's just got a blob on the back, so I need to take that off real quick. On the car, that wouldn't happen because, you know, so maybe what I'll do to be more realistic here is I'll bring this off the edge like this. Also understand, I'm going to be fighting warpage here more than you would on a car because this is unsuspended. And that's good. That stretches my abilities here. So again, I try not to hide anything and just show you, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, but everything's nice and cool, so we should be golden. Don't think anything's warped here. So yeah, this is going to push my abilities to do this just hanging out here in space. This could be a disaster. Something else that probably would work, and I want to show you another technique, and we'll do this here. This is a good time to show you this. I just went through and ground that off on the back, and it's nice and flat again, so that's all it was. But anyway, a brass backer. Now, let's talk about that a little bit. So I've got a piece of brass here that I use for this, and this is a good way to go. You can get from Eastwood. They have them that have a magnetic thing and a cleat that goes against the panel, and you can put that in there like that. And if you can get at the back side, and you can fill weld and stuff like that. I'm going to go ahead and use this here to demonstrate this for you. It's a pretty slick way to go. Just got to figure out how to stick my, here we go. Okay, that'll work. Let's get the ground clamp back up there again. Okay, so now that we got brass on the back of that, it'd be a good idea to clamp this down here a little bit. Don't get too carried away. Again, this is more because of being on the bench than anything. Just want to hold things together. Okay, I don't want to put too much pressure on it. But now I got brass to go against. So what the brass does is it becomes a heat sink, helps draw that heat off, as well as give the weld something to pull against back there so that it fills quicker. So let's show you that. See, just like that. So with a backer behind it, it's definitely a lot easier to do. I've used aluminum for this as well. Let's move this down here. Get another one done. The 47 Ford, we filled probably 75 holes in the firewall using a piece of brass or I think we used a piece of aluminum. My buddy Jim was inside the car holding it against the holes, and then I was filling them in. I filled holes up to that big. So lather, rinse, and repeat. Pretty warm. We'll cool that down. Again, if you can touch it, it's good. Fill in a couple more over here. Okay, I missed my brass there and it's getting warm, so it's time to cool it down. Oop, burned away my corner. Thought the brass was behind it and it wasn't. Okay, let's move that brass down. It doesn't stick. That's the cool thing about it. Take your time, you're not in a hurry. Okay, that didn't catch, but I'm not going to go there again. I'm going to let it cool. Okay, that time it did. So you see, you can't be in a hurry. And if you can't touch it, you shouldn't be welding it because it will warp. Okay, so you can see we got a lot of that done. There's more to do, but I want to go ahead and show you how to fill this in. So we're going to make a fill piece to go in here. I would recommend using a piece of metal that's the same thickness as what you're working with. It's tough to join dissimilar pieces of metal. You could put a piece of 20 gauge in here, but being as I'm using 18, it's got just a teeny bit of warpage there. But again, it's not surprising because this is just a piece of metal sitting out here. If this was a metal top bench, I would tack this down to the bench itself and that would make a big difference. But it's coming out all right considering, I mean, again, this is for demonstration. On a car, doing what I'm doing, you have a lot more surface area. Wouldn't be as big a deal because the heat would dissipate more as long as you keep it cool. Plus I'm sitting here twisting it around and so forth, but you're getting the idea. So let's come down here and cut out a piece and I'll show you how I make a piece to fill this gap. So if you got a piece this long, you're going to have to find a piece of metal or several pieces of metal to fill that in. Okay, so I got a piece here that I cut from down here and I went and just hammered it flat. So I'm going to lay it behind. And this is a perfectly acceptable way of doing this, is you can simply lay a piece behind and then just go ahead and weld in, just like I was doing. I'm going to go ahead and do a butt weld on this. So I'm going to take my marker. But for the rookies, for those who are just learning how to do this, you'd be much better off to go ahead and put a piece of metal behind like this and just weld it like that. Okay, from the backside it's not going to look factory perfect, but you've got a lot more strength in lap weld like that than you would have in what I'm going to do here. So I'm just marking it, cutting it out. So I know where it's got to be now. I'll take my snips. I need to find my better snips. These are straights. I think I'm going to want my right-handed ones to just peel that off the edge. And we're going to go outside the black line, of course, to try to get a piece that's going to fit in there. Well, I couldn't find my righty, so I'm using my lefties. And I'm just trying to go and leave myself a little gap. So understand that left-handed, say left right there, they peel the metal off the left side. So that's where you want your cutoff piece to be. Just try to keep your edge good, go along there. Hopefully you were in view there. Yep, you were. Okay, so I'm getting closer, and it's upside down. Okay, I'm not going to go any further with that, with the snips. What I want to do now is get my grinder and start grinding it down in. So I need to determine where it's thick and where it's thin, and what be this and what be that, and why you got to look like that. Okay, so we'll take our grinder, and I'm going to get my hand vise and put that in there if I can find it. Good luck with that. Here is a pair of vice grips that I welded some big chunks on. I was originally intending this to be a panel flanger, but it didn't work with a hoop. But it works great for stuff like this. That's why I called it a hand vise. Vice grip. So I just put my piece of metal in there. Now I got a good hold of it. See that? And now I can take my hand grinder and just go start trimming this down. Just like that, we've got a piece fit in there now. It's perfectly flush across there. So we'll clamp that down, and we'll get that tacked in place. We'll show you. Just going to do a little tacks here and here and here and here and here and here and here. We don't need to go all the way across now because we have a fill piece. So we're tacking little bits. And again, you're going to have to be super slow and super careful, because if you're not, what's going to happen is you're going to end up warping it. As I was editing this video, I just wanted to mention that part of the reason I've included just so much time lapse is to just give you some kind of a realistic idea of how long it takes to do that stuff. You have to be so slow and so patient, and so I purposely included a lot of that time lapse so you'd get the impression and get the idea that you're not going to weld that together in 5 minutes. It's going to take you a while. That's just all part of this process. All right, we got her all welded up now. Did get a little teeny bit of warpage in there, and I'm not sure why, but it probably was because I just didn't have it on a good flat surface. But on a car, you're not going to get that. But again, I don't hide anything, so overall it's pretty good. And I'm going to show you some real-world stuff on the 70 Stitches Challenger project over there, what things look like when I hung a quarter panel and a couple things like that. So now the next step is, let's flip it over. You can see part of it, we got goobers down here because I was welding against the wood. So, but again, on the car, blah, 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 it's fine. So let's go ahead and get this ground down. And remember that grinding can warp metal just as much as welding can. So same rule of thumb, you want to keep it to where it's not too hot so you can't touch it. So, work a little bit, grind, cool it down, work a little bit, cool it down. If you watch that metal, you can see it move and you know you're putting too much heat into it. I got to switch my cutting wheel off of my DeWalt here, get a grinding wheel on there, and then we'll go after it. So I've got everything in position here now, and we'll go ahead and we'll start grinding that up. And again, we're going to be checking it for heat as we go to make sure that we're not getting things too hot. So one little bit at a time. and that's what we've got. I could get better, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. I'm not looking to make it perfectly metal blended so that you can't see that there's a weld. I'm not into that. It's nice, it's cool. Can I do it? Yeah, I did it here. But I don't think it's worth putting that much heat into the metal and filling it and all the stuff you could do. I mean, if I really wanted to be tricky and, you know, be deceptive, I could put some lead in there and hide all of that, and you'd think, wow, man, he blended that panel perfectly. I'm not interested in hiding anything. It is what it is. Because it's just this little piece of metal here, I did get just a teeny bit of warpage. It's not bad, but you know, you get in the idea. So let's take you over to the car and show you what we got. Oh, I didn't show you the back side of this. Let's flip it over. Okay, there you go. And there's the back side. So not bad. Could be better. You know, if I wanted to come back and weld it on both sides, but again, especially on a piece this small, I don't want to put that kind of heat into it. So let's take you over to the car and show you some of the batches I've done over there and what they've turned out like. I think the biggest thing here is going to be this quarter panel, which is a lap weld. There is an L-shaped little flange in there from a panel flanger. I'm going to put a skim of tiger hair over it. So again, I'm more concerned about not getting crazy with the thing and putting all kind of heat in there. And I'm not interested in taking the amount of time it would take to go ahead and finish that off perfectly and etc. Now, I did not do cut and butt on this. I just find it's faster and easier in my own experience to just do that flange. And, you know, I come out of a body shop environment where we're doing this stuff for quick and dirty, get it done, get it out. So, you know, there's a little more grinding and a couple of holes to fill and stuff like that. But this quarter panel is hung, and I think it's hung very well. So it's better than what was on there before anyway, which was a big rusty pile of holes. Again, to take you back in here, that whole rear seat pan was out of either a CUDA, which I just found out that CUDA and 7174 B body may be the same size back here, that the floor pan is 2 inches shorter.
I can neither confirm nor deny those allegations.
But the guys that told me that are pretty smart and pretty reliable. So, but anyway, you know, I grind as much as is necessary. I grind no more than is necessary. I'm not interested in making things look perfect. I want them to be strong. So yes, could I go through and grind all that up? What the heck for? It's going to be underneath your rear seat. You're never going to see it. So why bother? So that's just a few of the things. I'll show you another patch I did up here. This one I took my time, did a little better on. I did fiberglass this in a little bit, but there's 2 patches in here. I think one in here and maybe another one over here. And with just a little Skoda, it was pretty good metal finish wise anyway, but because this was in the door jamb and was visible, I took more time and finished it a little bit better. So, and I think this was the first bit of Bondo work I did on this car. It's dirty from sitting in here. I'll show you another one. A few pinholes to fill, but again, this is under the vinyl top. So, but I had to cut this out to fix a piece of structure underneath here. So I haven't gotten this. I will probably lead this back in like the factory did. Some guys were asking if I would show them how to do lead work. I've demonstrated lead work on the 26 Oakland as far as leading in screens in the pan. It's the same techniques. I've done a lot of lead work over the years, so we'll go ahead and show that as well. But you can see that this is pretty good, a couple little pinholes. But as far as being able to see, the metal finish work is pretty good on this piece that I cut out, and I just put it right back in again. And I just shot that with some primer. It's still a bit wet. We'll show you that when it's dry as well. So let's do a wrap up and then we'll come back when that's dry and show you what we got. Again, I will say, you've heard me say it before, contexts are not just the text messages you get from your relatives in prison. There's a context to every single vehicle that we do. If you're doing a 1970 Hemi CUDA convertible, these are not the techniques you're going to want to use. You're going to want to take your time. You're going to want to buy the highest end panels you can. You're going to want to learn how to do the coach building type of fabrication, which I can do some of. I'm not that good. I'm no Fitzy over at Fitzy Fabrications or Matt over at Iron Trap Garage or the great Gene Winfield. Those guys are much more coach builders than I am. I'm a cheap and dirty, let's just get her done. Get her done. Get her done. That's all I'm interested in. structurally sound, not going to be full of Bondo, and looks pretty respectable when it's done. You can see that 47 Ford that I'm looking at. That's one car that's been done with exactly these techniques. I'll take you and wander you around that at the end of the video here. The 69 Charger that my son did, exactly these same techniques. You can see that car on the channel, gorgeous black Charger. I'll be doing an episode on that here in the next few days. I'm going to get some rear shocks on that and just come up with a game plan to really move that car forward, because it's been sitting, and Joe and I have been talking about needing to get it forward and get the glass in it and get it so when he comes home he can rip up and down the road with it and have fun with it and enjoy it and stuff like that. So 68 Pro Street Dart GTS, same exact techniques. You know, we're going to be doing some of the same work on the Forsyth Duster over there. The direction we're going to be going in the Golden Mullet, we'll use some of these techniques, but we're going to be going a little different way on that car, because we're not doing one of these preservation driver cars. We're going to be having a lot of fun. I'm hoping, I got the trailer here, I'm hoping that early next week we're actually going to have the Golden Mullet here on the property and getting ready to move forward. We got an engine in that. We want to do a will it run. If you've seen the episodes on the 413, we've got a plan for that. And there's a 671 blower back there that might find its home on that 413 once it's punched out to 426. And there's just a lot of stuff going on over here. Need to get back on the 26 Oakland. It's been sitting for about 6 weeks now. It's not running right. I'm hoping to get at that this weekend as well. There's just stuff, a lot of stuff. So yeah, let's. I'll take you around the 47 Ford, and then we'll come back over and look at this panel. 100% of this car, it's on the channel here. Unfortunately, the restoration isn't. I was doing that long before, but I've done almost all the work on this car. A lot of patchwork. I painted it. The roof was caved in. I hammered and dollied that out. My buddy Matt did go ahead and finish the roof off for me, just because we were wanting to spend some time together, and he's a body man extraordinaire. But you know, what you see pretty much is what I've done on this car with the same techniques that you just saw me doing there. Is there mud in it? Of course. I wasn't going to go through and buy all new panels, but I bought some patch panels here and there, welded it all together, patched up the floors with the same techniques you're seeing, and I don't know if anybody'd be embarrassed to be seen driving around in that unless you don't like Fords that bad. And I even know some guys that don't like Fords that wouldn't mind driving around in that. There are episodes on the channel where I'm actually painting the front clip and some other things. I still got to paint the grill, some other work on that. Hopefully, I was hoping to do that by now. I want to be driving that car this summer. I've been saying that for years, but there's always something else going on. And right now the focus is trying to get the Stitches Challenger back on his feet and get it off the rotisserie. But you know, there's always something to be doing, so we'll get to it. We will, I promise, we will. We were thinking about driving that to the No Name Nationals, and if that was the plan, it would have been a lot further along than that by now, but unfortunately my work situation blew up and I lost almost all my employees, and I had to go back to work full-time, and I don't have time to go to the No Name Nationals or do anything else, so this is just the way it is. All right, she's not 100% dry, but you get the idea anyway. I got to get on to other things here today, so turned out pretty respectable. That's just some primer on there. Imagine you put just a small skim coat of tiger hair and sand that out, and you'd never know. 100%. All right, well, that's going to do it for this one. We're over on the Face Thing. Instant Grandma. She loves us. She buys us cookies and stuff. Don't miss out on Instant Grandma. We're here on the You Thing. Like, subscribe, all that stuff that you know you're supposed to do to help the channel continue to grow. A lot more coming on the Stitches Challenger. But I took the time out to do this because, like I said, that guy over at eBodies and Channel Viewer had asked specifically how to fix a couple of things that were going on. I hope this was helpful for you. And, well, that's going to do it. So we'll catch you on the next one.
Don't forget.
It's important.
Rock!